Joanna, I want to get your response to those comments from Jay Carney, given the fact that we are seeing this ramped up FTC scrutiny right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Whole Foods thing is interesting. I didn't hear the question that it was in response to, but let's not forget, Amazon is the biggest e-commerce retailer in the world. Yes, they own a smaller supermarket. That's my biggest response. I don't know what the... Did you ask the question?
We asked about the FTC request for information on prior acquisitions and that, whether this was a show request or actually companies are going to have to do some real work in complying. And he pointed right to sort of the buildup ahead of the acquisition. You know, would Amazon basically become grocery in America? And his point is we're not.
Yeah.
Anything wrong with that?
Jay's on the warpath lately.
Yes,
He's out there defending Amazon. Most big grocery stores, I don't think, have a gigantic cloud computing business throwing profits at them so they can operate at lower margins. I think this is the issue with Amazon. In many of the segments they're in, they're smaller, but their competitors who might be bigger do not have the ability to basically play pricing games that walk right up to the line. And that is over and over again where you see the scrutiny come in.
So the flywheel is what makes them different. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, it's funny. I think the Senators put out a letter. Amazon has to stop its profit at all costs culture. Amazon for years famously made no profits. Right, they built that engine so they could start spinning off profits.
I mean, Walmart has no trouble lowering prices. I mean, Walmart's got super low prices, but they get treated by the street like a company that's got, you know, slim margins in a whole lot of areas. Amazon, on the other hand, can choose not to make money for long periods of time and still get an amazing multiple, which is currency for them. Their reputation is more of a tech innovator instead of a low-margin grocer, and that matters, right?
Yeah, I think ultimately the conventional wisdom is that when Amazon wants to turn it on, they're going to turn it on. And why do they have that ability? Because they have locked up a significant part of the market. To Joanna's point, all commerce is moving to e-commerce, and they're the largest player in that space. If Amazon wants to sell you some no-brand iPhone charging cables at a sky-high price, you might never cross-shop it, and they're able to just have that margin at will.
All right, well, Jay Carney also responded to critics and concerns about the tax rate that Amazon pays. Take a listen to that.
We just follow the law. If people have an issue with the tax rate that any company pays, their issue is with the tax code and not with the company.
We covered a lot of ground in that interview,
Yeah.
Joanna.
What was the question there?
It was about the fact that they have been under an incredible amount of scrutiny from lawmakers and others about the very low tax rate that they have paid historically over the years. Also talked about HQ2 and what we've seen play out, especially with the whole incentives debate here in New York City, which we know ultimately meant that they pulled out of Queens.
Yeah, I'm assuming also talked about the loss of the contract with the Pentagon.
Oh, yes.
Jedi,
Yeah.
deposing the president.
Yeah.
Abuse of power is essentially what he's alleging when it comes to procurement.
I think Amazon, Jay's been their head of PR for a long time. He's been very vocal lately. He's obviously coming on your air. They don't have a lot of friends, right? And I think they need to make their own narrative very forcefully. Hey, we are actually a good employer. Hey, we actually pay the rate that Bernie Sanders wants people to pay, even though he might not like everything else we do. Hey, we actually are above board in taxes. If you want us to pay more taxes, change the law. We're not going to voluntarily. That's the narrative they need. They're not getting it from anyone but themselves. I mean,
customer satisfaction of Amazon product is pretty high. The cities where they're a big employer, I have to imagine they're popular. No, is that a fool's errand? I mean, is that a misguided notion?
Sure, but I think all of this is really about Amazon's power and the tech company's power, right? Looking ahead to 2020, I mean, I was thinking about it this morning. Is Bezos more of a political pawn in all of this than, let's say, Zuckerberg? I mean, when we're looking at the future here and we're looking at the tech companies caught in the crossfire.
Right, so here's where Carney differed. He says, we're not taking your personal thoughts and monetizing them for free.
Your data.
We're packaging goods and delivering them to your door.
That's a great target.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than there's no First Amendment issue wrapped up in that. We think about this all the time. Facebook takes a lot of heat from people because it doesn't have a great story about the utility it provides, right? It's photo sharing, it's your friends. Amazon and Google, when we do surveys of our audience or we look around, the amount of utility they provide is a huge buffer of public opinion. People like Amazon, because they push the button, they think the price is low, whether or not it is, and the thing shows up the next day. You ask Google a question, you get an answer. Whether or not that answer further radicalizes teenagers across America, who knows, but at least you get an answer right away. Amazon needs to continue making that utility argument, and that might buffer some of the political stuff.
Yeah.
But The FTC, DOJ, heavily focused on tech companies, less so telecom companies, but definitely tech companies, and that's coming for them.
But I think the flip side of that, and part of the reason this is a company that's been under scrutiny like other big tech companies, is yes, maybe they're not quote unquote monetizing your data, but they still have vast swaths of data to work off of, and what that's meant for their ability to compete in some cases against their very customers in certain marketplaces.
Yeah, and comes back to what Nilay mentioned before, which is AWS. I mean, this is the company that runs the internet in some ways. They are behind pretty much everything we use.